Ted Cruz's Super American Sermon / campaign announcement today was a symphony in many movements. We're going to break it down for you now. More video starting with movement number 1, which turned out to be a cover of John Lennon's classic, Imagine.
I want to ask each of you to imagine. Imagine millions of courageous conservatives all across America rising up together to say in unison, we demand our liberty. Today, millions of young people are scared, worried about the future, worried what the future will hold. Imagine millions of young people coming together and standing together saying, we will stand for liberty. Imagine, instead of economic stagnation, booming economic growth. Instead of small businesses going out of business in record numbers, imagine small businesses growing and prospering. Imagine young people coming out of school with 4, 5, 6 job offers. Imagine innovation thriving on the internet as government regulators and tax collectors are kept at bay and more opportunity is created. Imagine America finally becoming energy self-sufficient as millions and millions of high-paying jobs are created.
Imagine, I think, John, is a great word. It allows you to have a refrain in all your stump speeches that really is optimistic, and it does exactly what you want to do, which is it makes things about the future. I thought that was one of the smartest and best parts of the speech.
38 times he used the word, 38 times, and you know who agrees with you about it being a great word is Frank Luntz, Republican pollster, focus group
Wordmeister.
guy, and Wordmeister, who says it's who was quoted saying at one point that it's the most powerful word in the English language because it's inspiring, motivating, and has a unique definition for each purpose, for each person. It is so it's a great language vehicle, according to Frank and according to you. I think the question is, and you know, look, we think about Barack Obama in 2008, hope and change. These words are powerful, but they are also empty in some ways. And so the question is, Barack Obama got away with it in 2008 in some ways by being about hope and change. Ted Cruz is going to face a lot of scrutiny because Imagine also kind of suggests something we were talking about earlier, which is you can kind of, with a snap of the finger, suddenly we'll have 6 jobs waiting for us, and I will have won the lottery, and I'll be driving Matt Miller's Porsche. You know, you got to go a little further on that, but it's not a bad template. It's not a bad rhetorical tool.
Yeah. I'll tell you the other good thing about it, again, going forward, I assume he's going to make this a centerpiece of his stump speech, is you can use it to adapt to changing circumstances.
Sure.
So something new comes up, and you can say, imagine a president who would do X different than the current president, whatever. The other thing I thought, and again, we talked about this at CPAC, we talked about it in anticipation of today's speech, and earlier in the show, he's got to be more optimistic.
Yes.
The trouble with Ted Cruz's performance today, I'd say the main thing wrong with it is he was appealing to the people who currently support him and pretty much people who are like-minded with the people who currently support him but don't know him yet. If he's ever going to do well, he's going to have to expand his base, and optimism is one way to do it.
If you're going to be, you'd rather be the Imagine guy than the world is on fire guy. Let's put it that way. All right. Movement number 2 of the Symphony and Cruz revolved around a man we all know well, a man who inspired millions, a man in need of no formal introduction, a man named Jesus.
There are people who wonder if faith is real. I can tell you, in my family, there's not a second of doubt. Because were it not for the transformative love of Jesus Christ, I would have been saved and I would have been raised by a single mom without my father in the household. For so many Americans, the promise of America seems more and more distant. What is the promise of America? The idea that, the revolutionary idea that this country was founded upon, which is that our rights, they don't come from man. They come from God Almighty.
So let's just say one simple thing. We know that he is appealing to evangelical voters, and for many of them, this will be music to their ears. But I think for some moderate Republicans, some chunk of the party, an overt and excessive to some ears emphasis on religion and politics is a little discordant. So he's running some risks here, it seems to me, by being, I mean, he's got to get the evangelicals to win, but he is going to run a risk of losing some number of moderate suburban Republicans by playing the religion card that hard.
You know, you think about the other people in this field, there are other people who wear their faith on their sleeve as much as Ted Cruz or close to it. That has not historically been the kind of person the Republican Party has nominated. Now, this cycle may be different. I thought in this case, again, you got to take into account the venue, you got to take into account what he needs to do politically. I thought part of the strength of the speech started slow on the biographical stuff, but I thought part of the strength was he really did speak from the heart. People underestimate his intelligence, and they underestimate the extent to which aspects of his message are pretty genuine and I think therefore powerful. The question is, it's easy in some ways to do that in this event, which was kind of like a megachurch sermon. Can he do that to good effect in a living room in Iowa? Well, and will he do that in a living room in New Hampshire? And if he doesn't do it in New Hampshire, does he get called on?
And some things about, I'd say the other thing is also true. In a big megachurch environment like this, it can also come off as phony. And he has, among some of his Republican colleagues, a reputation as being a little bit of a phony and a charlatan. So, again, he's walking a delicate tightrope there.
All right, finally, the finale of Ted Cruz presenting the chronicles of Heidi, his wife.
She starts a small business when she's in grade school, baking bread. She calls it Heidi's Bakery. She and her brother compete baking bread. They bake thousands of loaves of bread and go to the local apple orchard where they sell the bread to people coming to pick apples. She goes on to a career in business, excelling and rising to the highest pinnacles. And then Heidi becomes my wife and my very best friend in the world. Heidi becomes an incredible mom to our two precious little girls, Caroline and Catherine, the joys and loves of our life.
Incredible moment at the end when Heidi and the two girls came on stage. And what could be more charming than a presidential candidate who's the baker's husband?
Yes, indeed. And you know, I mean, Heidi has provided a lot of bread for that family in a variety of ways. He pointed out she'd been very successful in business. Didn't go quite so far as to point out that she was a managing director at Goldman Sachs. I'm not sure that's going to come up in a lot of his speeches going forward with the populist wing of the Republican Party, not particularly that psyched about big banks.
Never said the words Goldman or Sachs.